But you have seen. Really.
Yeah, the part of the issue, and that has been an ongoing argument in Kenya, is that the implementation of the Constitution, I think it is something that ought to be repeated. The implementation of the Constitution, you see, historically, you have a situation in which people who are very strong supporters of the old constitutions, people who cannot be described by Democrats of much shade, have ended up having Uhuru had 10, William Ruto had 10, one is an extreme of the other, so that you have had a situation in which, so to speak, enemies of the Constitution, 2010 Constitution, have been responsible for the implementation of the Constitution. That cannot be an ideal situation. The issue when you talk about boundaries, underlying the politics that we've been having in Kenya, and even people saying we want 7-term, we don't want these. You heard they have recruited Ethicon, the chairman of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, to try and somehow imagine crises that can enable you as a chairman of Electoral Commission to avoid an election. This is, there is a professor of law, all of us know him, called Professor Ben Wabweze. He said, wrote a long time ago, that the challenge of constitutionalism in Africa has always been the willingness of the people elected in accordance with the constitutions to govern in accordance with it. This is a historical problem that we've had. So that you find a situation where the constitution says you will go to an election and submit. It's during the term that you've been there. But you find even that one, people asking, how are we, and you find a we, how are we going not to serve 10 years like anybody else, or 2 terms like anybody else? And you think and you see the way the country is going. People can even drive the country to civil war over an entitlement of something that is a privilege. Leadership of a country is a privilege. When you fail a country in a democracy, people with good scruples, you'd expect that you would say, there is no good reason for me to go on. But when you start now from the point of view of subversion of the Constitution, because like the issue of boundaries, and there are some cases that have been going on, many Kenyans don't know. There's been this expectation that some court would somehow say that the failure to demarcate the Constitution would take away the legal necessity to have an election in 2027. This is subversion. Subversion of the Constitution is treason. But unfortunately, we do not have working DPPs. We do not have working institutions. We also have situations, for example, where the Supreme Court said you cannot sue the president. But a lot of these schemes, like to subvert the Constitution, ensure there is no IEBC in time, this has been treasonous actions by the president. But again, you have a whole Supreme Court saying the president cannot be taken to court, cannot be sued. But in my view, the only way to uphold the constitutions, and we shall be fighting that in another case, is the day that Kenyans are able and the courts accept their responsibility to ensure the president is stopped from engaging in constant treason.
I know it's your time this much, but this is what I wanted to say. 14,000 people, even 12, even 10,000 people who are extremely toxic will not discuss, for example, such a proposal contained in a judgment, because it has been suspended. That's why I'm calling it a proposal for now. They will not discuss it because they are seeing as if it is them actually, being targeted. And that's where the problem is. And it's not only in this judgment, it is actually across the board. That's why we have had missing young people. That's why we have had all other constitutional provisions not being implemented yet.
Right. But there must be a risk in this, that if at all the Constitution can continuously be violated or defied or just ignored without consequence, there will be something at the end of it, don't you think? Where is the weakest link? Is it our judiciary that a failure to actually implement or even interpret some of these provisions of the Constitution conclusively with consequence? That is what is leading us to this.
In my view, the challenge is that there are no pecuniary nor criminal consequences for failure to respect the Constitution. And in my view, it's not really about implementing the Constitution. It's a failure of the leadership to respect the Constitution. You remember the Constitution has got inbuilt mechanisms on how it was supposed to be implemented. We've had several committees, several commissions to ensure that the requisite pieces of legislation were created. But when it comes to respecting the Constitution, in fact, the first person who failed to respect the Constitution was President Kibaki. You remember the appointment of Justice Visram as the Chief Justice and the President of the Supreme Court. It took Mr. Raila Odinga to say, wait a minute, no. That is how you got Dr. Willie Mutunga coming in. So in my view, it's about checks and balances. It's the people who have got a responsibility, leadership responsibility, to just respect the Constitution. But if you are going to just play easy willy and people disrespect the Constitution and there are no consequences, then it will keep on mutating and people will keep on disrespecting it. And you know, it's not just limited to Kenya. Mm-hmm. Even the US Supreme Court stands accused, or people, I mean, especially the Democrats, they're accusing the US Supreme Court of kissing Donald Trump's ring because it becomes very powerful, it becomes overbearing. And at the same time, there are conversations, and the two lawyers would probably give us more insights, that at some stage members of the judiciary are compromised to take decisions either way. There are even conversations that law should be a second degree. If you follow conversations on social media, you know, even on this issue of 5, they were saying, is this 5 a legal issue or a mathematical issue? Now, the people who are responsible for giving us the Constitution are the ones, again, who are responsible for this mischief. But at the end of the day, in my view, we've got ourselves to blame. We are talking about these 14,000 or so elected leaders, but who places them in office? As we approach the next election, everybody is complaining about governance. But when the rubber is about to meet the road, people abandon meritocracy. People abandon character, competence, and capacity. They go to their tribal cocoons and elect people who have no leadership capacity. People cannot even be the chairman of that WhatsApp Matanga. We give them leadership position. I mean, for instance, where the Constitution says that Kenya must be a multi-party nation, that we have embraced multi-party politics, and political parties must have the face of Kenya. Now, you have one political party called DCP, which has created a vetting committee made up of people from one ethnic group. Now, how do you describe that as democracy? Is there going to be a pecuniary or a criminal consequence or liability for that? No. The people who are kissing regarding this ring are saying, this is the best decision. Please vet. There are some people we don't want here. And on the extreme side, is referring people who are not aligned to DCP as traitors. Is that not violating the Kenyan Constitution? Are there going to be any consequences? No. Instead, it's going to be handed flowers. Somebody's giving him a red rose every day. So in my view, we must sit back and stop blaming our elected leaders. Because one of the responsibilities of a leader is to the elected leaders is to represent us. So the people you see at the National Assembly, the people you see at the Senate and county assemblies, they are representing our interests. Now, some of the sharpest tools in the shed that one would expect to go to the political space, they've abandoned that space. And what happens after every election? They go to the top of Mount Kenya, literally, and complain about the quality of leadership, yet they did not offer themselves for the political competition. And if they did everything guided by their tribal interests.
Right.
Yeah, Fred, I don't think
very
that's
briefly.
very honest.
We need to go on a break.
That's a very honest analysis. But still, it remains that we should actually put on check the leadership. That's the main thing. I mean, if you go to Gachagua right now, honestly, I mean, it's a new party. It's coming up now. And, for example, he understands the kind of pressure under which we play politics in the country. Here are leaders who are definitely trying to crash such a new party. And he is aware that the political base and the only place I get full support will be here. And so he cannot allow, for example, people come from wherever they come just because of democratic, approaches. Like, oh, you have to be democratic. When your own party, even leadership, is not actually democratic. So I think on that, I can just say, it is okay. We can also advise him as a citizen and as a leader. But the main problem is at the doorstep of people in governance and in leadership today. Those are the people we must check.
Just before we go for a break, something small on that particular issue. The clarifications that needs to be done is that the assurance of multi-party democracy in Kenya, for example, would mean that across the country, which is likely to be the scenario in the coming general election, all seats should be competed for by as many parties as possible. There is no politician, unless with the force of the state, incapable of preventing, for example, Munya's party or Democratic Party from offering candidates for office. For example, anywhere in Mount Kenya or anywhere else in Kenya. And finally, the issue of traitors that my colleague is talking about, the way it is understood there is different. It is actually Rigathi Gachagua himself. People may not know that politics, who has been more open to receiving people associated with UDA to come and contest for office. Okay. The traitor issue, the way it is coming in, is for the people to say, you cannot just betray a community for 5 years. Then you think you are eligible. Now when you have formed a party for the people, to come and say you are competing for office with other people. All right. It's a political discussion, and it is also without merit. I'm not a politician. I will not be voting for anything. But I would have difficulty that, for example, if you are Kimani Ichung'wah, you must just come with UDA. You can't come to...
Allow us to take a break. I know. We really have to take a break. You're watching TV 47. The main question and how we started was about the election date. Is Ruto a temporary incumbent? That's a question on the front page of the People Daily. It is one of the implications of that pronouncement by that judge in Malindi. But yes, she also suspended implementation of the same. So probably this question may not be as valid, but definitely a question nonetheless. Would this mean that the next election, come 2027, would only get people who will be elected for a period of only 4 years? That is also one of the implications. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we consider more of the 1 year to the general election.